do. Because what happens to most self-taught guitar players is you start off learning and you learn a bunch of things and you get about to here and then you plateau for the rest of your life. And you're still doing the same licks you were doing in 1982. Which, if you're doing licks like Randy Rhoads or, Michael Schenker, that's not too bad. You made it pretty high. You've definitely graduated. But if you didn't get that, and you're still doing the same pentatonic licks that Chuck Berry was doing, which was great for his time. I mean, Chuck Berry was kind of the shredder of his day. You know what I mean? And again, I'm not knocking that whatsoever. I love it. I love playing Johnny B. Good. I'll always love playing Johnny B. Good. I tend to do more of like the Judas Priest version of it. But either way, I still love doing that. But the thing that really got me was that I knew right on at the beginning that theory was a must. And I took a little bit of theory in high school. I played bass and drums for, like a semester. And half the semester was on the bass, half the semester was on the drums. And I learned a little bit how to read sheet music and stuff like that. And we did ear training on the piano. And then, of course, it was like a band, so like the full band stuff. So they had trumpets and saxophones and everything like that. And I played the drums and the bass. So I did learn how to read a bit of sheet music, and I started understanding some of the theory. And then one of my bass players at the time, my first bass player, Mark, he had a book about that thick. It was a white book with like a binding on it. And it said you'll see these things on every piano on the planet. It said Rudiments of Music. And it had like a bass clef or something on the front of it or whatever. And I grabbed that thing and I read it from cover to cover about twice. How much of it did I take in? I don't know, but enough to be dangerous, right? So I had an idea of the theory, but I still wasn't, able to, decipher, the Mr. Crowley solo or, like that crazy shred solo that Randy does in the middle of Suicide Solution live with the tribute. If you've never heard that solo, that's one of the greatest guitar solos of all times. It's just so crazy. And that was done on Les Paul most of the time, not his V. It's amazing he never snapped his guitars in half the way. If you ever see the very little footage of Randy Rhoads that is out there, he plays those guitars savagely, like he's bending the necks. He's just doing all these crazy things to his guitars. So I'm about 13 years old. Okay, I'm 50 now. And I was like, I really like, that's all I thought about all the time was, I thought about two things, being a teenage boy. One was guitars. You could think about what the other one would be. Anyway, a friend of mine, we were at school and there was a corner, like a store right beside the school. And then there was one down the street. And for whatever reason, we had to go to the one down the street. And I walked in there and instantly my eye caught the magazine rack, because on the magazine rack, there was this dude with a flying V staring at me. That dude. And I'm like, who's this guy? And that is a cool freaking guitar. I was always in love with flying Vs and Explorers. My favorite bands growing up at this time was guys like, Rudolf Schenker, Mike Matthias Jabs from the Scorpions. I was a huge Scorpions fan. So I wanted my first, real electric guitar. My first electric guitar was a 1968 Harmony Rocket, but I wanted my first real electric guitar to be that guitar. I never got that guitar, but I've played a few Gibson Flying Vs, and they are really cool, especially the core model with the 500T in it. Yeah, that thing is just absolutely savage. This is even more savage than that. But anyway, I looked at the magazine and it said guitar on it for the practicing musician. I'm like, what the heck is this? So I picked it up and I don't have my glasses. What was it? How much was this thing? Let's see here. Let's have a look. Get it in the light. This cost me $2.95. I think that's what my old eyes are seeing right there. $2.95. And then when I opened it up, this is what blew my mind. So I'm like, okay, well, there's Leo Fender. That's pretty cool. There's Vivian Campbell with some Randalls. Those were really cool. I basically had that head. Whatever. There's Michael Schenker, whatever. Let's go a little bit further. This is, who's this? John Butcher. Who did he play with again? So he got all this cool stuff, and then, wait a minute, what's this? Roxanne. There's some chords. There's music on top. Well, that's cool. You know, I'll have to brush up on my music. I didn't know that was in there. I didn't realize that's what, I thought they were just going to discuss the songs. Then we get to hear, this is, I think, Suicide Solution here. No, Life in the Fast Lane. What the heck is this? You got sheet music up here, and then the fret notation? Tabs. First introduction to tabs. As a kid, this is, you got to understand, this was a big thing. There's Joe Walsh there. You know, reading all the interviews and stuff like that. I had about 60 of these magazines. And then, of course, there was near the back here, Suicide Solution and stuff like that. The infamous solo from Suicide Solution is in this magazine. How cool is that? Yeah, so it's the live, see, Suicide Solution live. So that includes Randy's infamous solo. And I think I'm going to try, see if I could, the guy that did all the transcriptions in the Guitar Player for the Practicing Musician, and there was one just called, a magazine called Guitar Players. There was a few of them out there. And I think his name was Wolf Marshall. And people would trash him in the comments at the back, say, oh, he's not even close, blah, blah, blah. Well, how close he was, it's, to my ear, most of the songs out of the 60 some odd of those magazines that I had over probably 120 guitar type oriented magazines with tab and music. Now, mind you, I cheated and used the tab more rather than read the sheet music. But boy, my playing at 13, I went from 3-chord rock to that stuff. Yeah, how cool was that? And all the other guitar players in my school couldn't figure out how I got so good so fast. And when I learned how to play in time, I was even better. And that's how I did it. That was our YouTube. That was our internet. That was how we learned whatever. Now, all those guitar players, Randy, Michael, Eddie, Yngwie, he learned music, you know, actual, you know, classical music. But most of these guys that you grew up with didn't learn the music. They figured this stuff, they pioneered it on their own, just through trial and error of discovery of the fretboard, right? And what's really cool about that is that how far they got from going from 3-chord rock Chuck Berry solos, which again, not knocking it, to masterpiece solos, you know, like you know, Into the Arena, Suicide Solution live, that's that guitar solo in the middle, that you know, wow, that thing is just crazy. And then when guys like Joe Satriani came along, I learned as many Joe Satriani, and Steve Vai was pretty much on every cover of every guitar magazine for, like, you know, 2 years, you know, when Passion and Warfare came out, and pretty much got transcriptions to almost every one of those songs and every Whitesnake song too. So that was cool. So I used to play a lot of that stuff. Got a lot of Van Halen songs. I got all this crazy stuff, how to finger tap and all that. But one problem still remained, and it still sort of remains to this day, you know, for a journey of a self-taught guitar player, is that I understood how to read the tabs, sure, like most guitar players would. But what was I reading? Why did they do it this way? Why did they play it that way? Why did they play it this way? Why didn't they do this thing instead? And what I did discover as I learned more music theory, which I'm still, you know, you would never call me a massive theory guy, but I have taught a few people how to play guitar, and I usually give them about 10 lessons of just music theory first. Yeah, get the boring stuff out of the way, because they won't understand it later, you know, if you don't put it into practice right away. They won't understand it right away, but when they get it later on, the world opens up for them. And if I were to go back to 13-year-old me or 10-year-old me, I definitely would, you know, teach myself, you know, the intervals, the circle of fifths, you know, right where you start, and really get that down. And then all this other stuff, modes and stuff like that, you spend a lifetime working on that. But the thing is that when you understand what that stuff is, you'll always hear people say, I don't want to take lessons because I don't want to sound like everybody else. Well, the news flashes, you do sound like everybody else because you don't. You're a self-taught guitar player that has that much knowledge of what you're doing. But once you understand what you're doing, the reason why Steve Vai can take his music all over the place, and Joe Satriani and guys like that, and Yngwie, is because they know before they even touch the guitar, they already know what the song is going to sound like. They already know what they're going to play. They know what mode they're going to play in, all this stuff. They know it ahead of time because they know the theory. They know they can make the song sound any way they want. If you ever listen to Yngwie talk about how he composes a song, and he'll get really excited, and the theory geek guys are like this, whereas like, okay, I started off in the Hungarian minor mode, then I switched it to just regular Aeolian mode, and then before they knew it, I was in Locrian, and it just blows everybody's mind, what I mean? And you're like, what's this guy talking about, right? But once you understand what he's talking about, you'll understand why he's so giddy about it, because he doesn't have to play the whole song in the same mode, just a major mode or a minor mode. He can make it sound as outrageous as he wants at his own whim because of the knowledge he gained through that. So fast forward to today. I've been past, say, 2 years really brushing up on my theory, really brushing up on that. One of the best guitar channels out there for the shredder guys, although if you're a very new guitar player, I don't know if I should recommend him or not, because he's going to be speaking way over your head. And I would really recommend you get the